Welcome to your virtual day trip. I'm Luna and this is Annalise. We're thrilled to be exploring Epsom with you.
We'll stroll along the high street discovering its rich history and stories of its famous faces.
Plus, we get to meet some wonderful locals who'll share their passion for creativity, nature and well-being.
So, sit back and enjoy this memorable adventure.
We're heading to the town hall to meet David Brooks, the museum assistant at Bourne Hall Museum, which is a museum for Epsom and Ewell.
David is a font of knowledge, making him the perfect tour guide, starting with how Epsom got its name and became popular with visitors.
Epsom has a fairly long history there. It is actually a Saxon settlement originally and is actually named after a man called Ebi, not St Ebers, as the rather more romantic Victorian historians like to actually claim. But this guy called St Ebi, and he settled here somewhere probably around the year 600. But the village was actually not where the centre of the town is now, but up by St Martin's Church, up there. And it stayed up there until 1618 with the discovery of Epsom salts. Epsom was quite a very minor place up to then. It was a farming community. Not a lot went on. Ewell was actually more important in many ways than Epsom. A farmer up on Epsom Common was finding water for his cattle during a very hot summer season, and he saw a little trickle of water coming all the way out of a hill. He made it bigger, brought the cattle over. They wouldn't drink it. He tried it and became the first person in the world to discover the effects of Epsom salts, which is an amazing laxative. He thinks, great, we can make some money out of this. So Epsom becomes the first public spa of this country. Samuel Pepys came and described the process. You go up on Epsom Common early in the morning when the salts are strongest. You drink several pints of this rather murky brown water, and you then walk up and down for 20 minutes, then rush off into the bushes. To which he's quoted was that I passed several fine stalls and was perfectly satisfied. It takes off, and from then on, there's nowhere to stay. There's a problem with the people in the town. Samuel Pepys had to stay in a farmhouse, and he slept in the kitchen overnight. And during the night, he's actually awoken by a noise. He thinks it's burglars, so he draws his sword to defend himself, and he realises he's been sharing the kitchen with a pig all night. That's how kind of rural it is.
Epsom has a thriving town centre filled with delightful cafes, shops and of course public houses.
We're heading to one of the first assembly rooms in the country. David can tell us more.
In the 1690s, two London goldsmiths decided to invest in Epsom to create a place you could go for a night out. So you could come here, you could drink coffee, the newfangled drink, chocolate, you could go dancing, you could get drunk, you could do the whole lot. There was music, they even went highbrow and did opera, they even did cockfighting. So this became the place to come a night out. Now if you came here and you're one of these ladies in their big silk dresses and you've come for a night out, and you could actually be put in come down in your sedan chair. Epsom High Street right up to the 1850s wasn't paved, it was a mud track. And so you could be carried in your sedan chair into the building through that archway. Coaches could even be driven into the archway, so you could get out in the dry and not ruin your dresses. And the stones in the arch actually come not only from Nonsuch Palace, but Henry VIII pulled down Merton Priory at Collier's Wood, and they put all the stone over, so a lot of the stone is actually medieval or Tudor, reworked Tudor from Nonsuch Palace. So it's a kind of survival from another period of Epsom's history.
I love the idea of arriving in my best frock and not getting my feet wet.
And once you've stepped out of your sedan chair, you'd be ready to socialise, chatting to all the local socialites.
Talking of chatting, Epsom has these great benches where you can sit if you fancy a natter.
What a great idea! And if there's no one around, you can always join Emily Davison. I'm sure she has some tales to tell.
And if you get thirsty from all the talking, you can top up your water bottle at one of the public fountains.
here the marketplace exists because this was the site of Epsom's village pond. It was very popular with local inhabitants because, for instance, during the winter it would freeze over and they would skate on it. And it had a railing round it. People would actually let their horses drink from it. They would put a big pole up on the railing, cover it in grease, and people would climb up and try to get to the top to actually pull down a pig, which was the prize. If you could pull down the pig, you would keep it. People liked it. And when they actually built the clock tower, they actually wanted to fill the pond in, but people protested and they had to wait another 4 years before they could actually fill in the pond. Before this clock tower, there was an earlier weather-boarded clock tower in the middle here, which was old in 1711. At the bottom of it was a lock-up, so if you did something wrong, you were locked up for the night.
The clock tower is a beautiful piece of architecture that can be seen from either end of the high street and has inspired our craft activity.
Colouring is a fantastic way for everyone to unwind. So let's pause and colour in our Epsom Clock Tower postcard. You will need a printout of the postcard, some colouring pencils, scissors, a glue stick or some tape. Step 1. Colour in your postcard. Use any colours you like. You don't have to match what's in front of us. Step 2. After you've added your unique colours, cut out the postcard. Step 3. It's time to assemble. Fold the postcard along the dashed line and then get your glue stick and run it along the edges. Press down firmly to make sure it's all stuck down. Step 4. Write a friendly note to a friend and perhaps invite them to watch the Epsom virtual day trip, or why not arrange a date when you can go together in person? So grab your colouring pencils and let's bring Epsom Clock Tower to life.
From one craft to another, David can tell us about someone with a very special skill set.
Let's meet him outside the pharmacy.
Right, behind us is a chemist. This is one of the oldest buildings dating from the Spa period, and it's also the building which has been doing the same thing for several hundred years. It's been a chemist, or previously a pharmacist as they would call them. If you notice, one of the upstairs windows is blocked in. That's because it had 8 windows, and they brought in what was called a window tax. It was very near here was the home of a lady called Mrs. Matt, who was a bone setter during the Spa period. She turned up like to share a song in a travelling medicine show with her father, but she could actually, if you pulled, dislocated your arm, broke your leg, she could reset it for you. And she was very strong, so strong in fact that she could actually reset horses' bones. She became very, very popular in Epsom. She was also known as Crazy Sally because she was blind drunk a lot of the time and went round swearing at everybody. But anyway, she was brilliant. She went up to London, she would cure people, and she would come back with crutches and all sorts of things where she cured people. One gentleman decided that he'd fallen in love with her and he wanted to marry her, which he finally did. Now the town offered, this is 1740, £500 for her to stay in the town because that is what she was worth to the town, or the people coming in. And but she decided this is her moment for love, and she went off with her new husband, and within 3 years he'd got through all of her money, and she died in the slums in Seven Dials in London, absolutely destitute.
Poor old Sally Mapp.
Indeed, although I wouldn't want her setting any of my broken bones after she'd been in the local tavern.
And on that note, we're leaving the clock tower in Epsom Market Square, wandering through the thriving market, which has been a focal point here since its royal charter in 1685.
Epsom High Street boasts a rich history, especially notable for its late 20th century reconstruction in front of original buildings.
This careful renovation integrated new shops while preserving the charm of historical structures defining Epsom High Street today.
This building on the corner of Ashley Road and the High Street was for many years the Spread Eagle Inn and Hotel,
accommodating the many visitors to Epsom from the late 17th century.
If only it had been there when Samuel Pepys visited, it would have saved him from bedding down with a pig.
We're off to the other side of town to chat with a nature enthusiast.
Kim can tell us all about an inspiring community mural project involving Glyn school students and positive arts.
Some of the wildlife that you'll see on this mural are actually right around us in the town, in people's gardens. A good place to visit is Epsom Common. It's absolutely wonderful. The E10 bus from the town centre will take you up there and you can see all the wonderful work that they're doing. I'm a bit of an insect geek because I look after invertebrates on the Hogsmill River. I'm one of the surveyors as a volunteer, and I do love to see the little creatures that I find in the water becoming beautiful dragonflies like the one we have on the other side of the mural. The stag beetle that you see on there with the nice big antlers, he was featured on the Złotag coin, which is a Polish currency, around the 1990s. They also tend to get depicted on postage stamps from all over the world. I think they're photogenic. Some people find them scary, but they're actually fascinating and beautiful beetles. Our borough is absolutely spoilt for choice. We've got an absolutely gorgeous country park. We have a wetland along the Hogsmill at Chambermead in Youghal. We have some absolutely beautiful parks. We couldn't do all this without our wonderful countryside team, people like the Epsom Common Association, and all the wonderful volunteers in this borough that roll their sleeves up and keep everything shipshape. The thing with volunteering is it does take people out of being isolated. It can be lonely. Some people live alone or they find themselves suddenly without a partner, and I think they get to meet friends, like-minded friends who like wildlife, and I think that's a wonderful thing in itself. Also, it's very healthy to be outside, keeps you fit, stops you sitting at home eating too many biscuits. That's why I do it, and I love it.
Thanks, Kim. Projects that inspire excitement about connecting with nature are a great way for communities to come together, support one another and care for their local ecosystem.
We can all do our bits by encouraging insects and pollinators into our gardens, or even having a window box full of plants.
Epsom is not only home to wildlife, there are so many famous creative people associated with the area.
Glyn Johns, the producer of the Rolling Stones in their early days, lived here. Gosh, you can imagine the parties they must have had after rehearsing.
Those guys definitely had a wild life.
Absolutely, Annalise. Well, we're not off to party right now, but there is a celebration to be had in the shape of a mural commemorating some of the great women associated with Epsom.
This vibrant artwork is a wonderful collaboration between members of Girl Guiding Epsom Division and the esteemed street artist Positive Arts, and now graces the heart of Epsom Town Centre just behind the High Street.
The mural serves as a poignant tribute to the remarkable women from Epsom and Youghall's cultural and historical narrative. It features Lady Sybil Grant, a visionary designer and campaigner, Isabella Beaton, the beloved culinary author, Kathleen Riddoch, one of the first female musical conductors in the UK,
and suffragette activists Emily Davison and Bessie Duller, trailblazing performer Evelyn Dove, artist and mentor Dame Laura Knight, and Nora Willis, a pioneer in postal delivery during World War I.
This artistic endeavour not only enhances the aesthetic appeal of the area, but also stands as a powerful reminder of the significant contributions made by these extraordinary women, enriching the community for generations to come.
There have been lots of famous people connected to Epsom, including singer Petula Clark, vegan activist Freya Smith Dinshaw, and TV faces Julia Ormond and Mel Giedroyc.
Plus actors Andrew Garfield, Warwick Davis, Tiger Drew Honey, Jeremy Vine and artist John Piper are all associated with Epsom.
It must be the Epsom water that brings out so much creativity.
Our next guest is one of the many creative souls who must be drinking it. Let's step inside the studio of Janice Hayes, a local potter.
So I've lived in Epsom for about 20 years and we first moved here because we really wanted a place that felt like it was the countryside but was like a thriving town and also could get to London. So I work in the centre of London. So this absolutely had all those things, and people kept saying to me, that kind of place doesn't exist, Janice. You're never going to find a house in a place that feels like the countryside and it's a busy town and it's, you know, and it just feels like it's really got that, and it has still got that essence of a market town. And like the weekly markets, just absolutely love on Thursday and Saturday, and the fact we've got a fresh fruit and veg market and flowers on sale, it's just, yeah, I just really, really love it.
Watching a maker create their work is a real privilege. Here Janice talks us through her process and the different stages of her work.
So I'll take the clay over to the wheel, ready to throw. So just preparing it to throw now is just getting it into a ball, so it's a good shape, a good round shape to get it going, and then throwing it down as close to the centre as possible to help the centering process. I then switch the wheel on and getting it up to full speed, put some water on the clay so that the clay doesn't stick to my hands. Water when throwing is really important. Once it feels like it's around centred and not wobbling too much, it then goes into the coning up process, which is squeezing the clay at the bottom so that it rises up into a cone shape and pushing down again. And that up and down motion gets all the particles of clay going in the same direction, all going round in a circle, which will then make for a more consistent and smoother pot when you start trying to pull the walls up. So once the coning up and down is done maybe 2 or 3 times and you can feel the consistency completely even and no lumps, it then goes back down to the wheel, ready for the opening up. So the opening up is finding the dead centre of the pot. I use my index finger to do that, and then pushing down, right down to the base of the clay, just allowing enough at the bottom so that there is clay there to form the bottom of your pot. Once that's gone down into the middle, it's then opening up, so taking that finger or a thumb, which is what I use, into that hole, and then moving all of the clay to the right hand side of the wheel to form the flat base. So forming the base of the pot then moves into getting the walls ready. So the donut shape that we've now got needs to be made straighter, and because of the centrifugal force that you get with things turning round, eventually the pot is going to want to go out. So you start off by making it go in. So we even out this donut shape with pressure on the inside and the outside, and bringing the clay up and inwards to make a cone. And then once that's formed, it's then moving into the pulling up the walls. So I'm putting pressure on the outside of the pot with my right hand, supporting it with my left hand, pressing in the clay on the outside, and then once a ridge is formed, moving both hands up together as a unit. I'll then do that maybe 3 or 4 times to get it to the height and the consistency that I'm happy with, and to get all the clay from the bottom of the wheel up to the top of the pot. After I'm happy with that basic cylinder shape, which is the basis of most lots of vessels like jugs or vases or mugs, I'll then move into what do I want the shape to turn into. And so with this vessel, I've decided to make like a bellied out vase for maybe short stems with a flared rim at the top. So I'm using a tool now to push out, to support the clay on the outside, to push on from the inside to create the shape while smoothing off the outside at the same time. And just going backwards and forwards with that to get the profile just how I want it, and the profile I'm checking in the mirror that's at the end of the wheel. So tidying up the outside of the walls, the other 2 bits that have to be tidied up are the rim of the pot, which is really important that that's smooth and there's the exact thickness that you want it to be. And then the very bottom of the pot, getting rid of the excess clay using the very pointed sharp tool to get a really nice clean sharp edge, and then undercutting the bottom to help it when it dries out, to get it off the pot neatly. So once it's all smooth and I'm happy with it, it's ready to come off the wheel and dry in the sunshine. These pots that I'm glazing are pieces that have not yet been fired. So this is called raw glazing. I've chosen to do a process of single firing ceramics rather than doing the bisque fire and doing the glaze fire. I go straight to the glaze fire. That means that these pots that I'm glazing now are really, really fragile. This is just dried clay. It's not clay that's yet been fired. So these vessels that I'm painting at the moment are wax melt burners. So this dish, the small dish that I'm glazing, will hold the wax, and then the base piece will have the candle in it that will melt the wax to create the scent. I'm painting the line at the bottom really, really, really carefully, because when they are fired, these two pieces are going to sit together, and if any glaze from either piece touches the other one, they'll be stuck together forever. So it's really, really important that the bottom of it, that the glaze doesn't go too far down, but I want them to look, when they stand together, that it is continuous. So it's a very tiny bit of bare clay. So the base piece is having the same type of glazing as the wax melt. At the bottom of the piece, I'm leaving quite a big band of unfired clay, which is something that I like to do with my ceramics, because I really like to be able to see the clay that the piece is made out of, because so much time has gone into making it. It's not just about the colour of a pretty shiny pot. For me, it's about the clay as well as the glaze. And again, at the top of this pot, I'm being really, really careful with the line of glaze, because that's going to touch the bottom of the dish, and I don't want them to stick together. And this is the first coat of glaze that these are having, and they'll have another 2 coats of the same colour painted on in different directions. So the next coat will be vertical, and then the coat after that will be horizontal. So once these have had their 3 coats and they are fully bone dry, I will load them into the kiln. So once I'm happy with having enough pieces at the bottom and they're spaced out enough so that they don't, the glaze doesn't hit each other and stick together, I'll load in the next shelf on top of that one, and then completely fill this shelf with pieces, and then close the lid and set it off for its fire. And that firing takes 10 hours. Once it's got to the top of its temperature, the kiln will then switch off, and it then takes 36 hours to cool down, which is then the exciting bit of opening up and hoping that it's all worked.
You can meet Janice and other fantastic local makers at various fairs throughout the year.
Now, we haven't seen David for a while. What have you got to share with us, David?
Right, so behind us is Ashley House, one of Epsom's fine Spa period houses. It was the home of Mary Ashley for many years. There was a local benefactor who built the almshouses in East Street, and it later became the Registry office. It also became the first courthouse in Epsom, and the courthouse then moved across the road and became a magistrates' court, and was pulled down recently and becomes a doctor's surgery. But it's where Emily Davison, the famous suffragette's inquest, was held. So it has quite a lot of historical importance. So Ashley Centre in its later days became Epsom's registry office. The most famous person to be married there in the 1960s was George Harrison of the Beatles, which caused absolute pandemonium because it was an absolute secret. And when Paul McCartney turned up and George and Ringo, it caused absolute pandemonium in the town. People were there. Phil Collins was also married there. Unfortunately, most of the people that were married there that are famous, marriages didn't seem to last, which is a bit of a shame. On the other side is the Evesham Halls, which was Epsom's sort of local rock venue in its day. David Bowie played there, the second performance of his Ziggy Stardust tour, and all sorts of people. Even Eddie Cochran, the vintage rock and roll player, played there, and Jimmy Page, who lived locally, went on to form Led Zeppelin.
Thanks, David. How lovely to hear about the wonderful musicians who've played in Epsom.
And on that note, we're heading to Rosebery Park, where Yulia will perform on her traditional Ukrainian folk instrument, the bandura.
After relocating to Great Britain due to the war, Yulia passionately shares Ukrainian musical culture, performing for charities and collaborating with the Epsom and Ewell Refugee Network.
Yulia beautifully blends tradition with modern sounds through her music, sharing stories of resilience and heritage.
Thank you, Yulia. It's wonderful to hear such beautiful music in the lovely setting of Rosebery Park. What a fantastic place!
And I know just the person to tell us about its history.
David!
Rosebery Park is actually named after Lord Rosebery. Very famous in his day, a bit forgotten nowadays. He was Prime Minister, but only for about 14 months. It said he had 3 ambitions in life. 1 was to be Prime Minister, 2 was to have a horse that won the Derby, and 3 to marry an heiress. Well, he became Prime Minister only for a very short time. He had 3 horses that won the Derby, and in 1898, when his horse won the Derby, there were over 1 million people on the Downs to watch the race, which is far higher than you get nowadays. It was so important to him, a friend sent a telegram to him saying only heaven left. He then looked round for someone to marry. He tried to marry into the royal family, but wasn't considered grand enough. So he actually ended up marrying Hannah Rothschild. Hannah Rothschild was actually the richest woman in England, the heiress to the banking firm. But there was a problem. She's obviously Jewish, he's not. His family wouldn't go to the wedding, so they had to get married in a registry office, which is actually mirrored in Downton Abbey, where they go to a similar situation, registry office wedding, and they say to Maggie Smith, the Dowager Duchess, I bet you've never been to a registry office marriage, and they say, yes, I went to Lord Rosebery's wedding. So what happens with the park is that the council want to put a road from the High Street to bypass South Street and come out just up the top here at the bottom in the Dorking Road. And so Lord Rosebery didn't want this because his daughter lived in the house at the top there, and he didn't want his daughter to be bothered by all this traffic. So he quickly bought all this land up, which was actually part of what was called the Common Fields of Epsom at the time, and he gave it to the council as a park. They weren't planning on a park, but they couldn't refuse it. But we do now have this lovely sort of open space.
How wonderful that Lord Rosebery gave the land for this park so close to the centre of Epsom.
You can step away from the busy high street and enjoy everything it has to offer.
Let's meet Joe, who can tell us more about why spending time in nature is so beneficial for our mental health.
So actually, Epsom's green spaces are particularly beneficial for mental well-being. You know, Epsom is home to so many great places, beautiful parks, woodlands, and, you know, especially the iconic Epsom Downs, where there's offering its breathtaking views and plenty of walking trails. The combination of nature, history, and accessibility makes these spaces ideal for relaxation and mental rejuvenation. I find walking really contributes to better mental health because it releases endorphins, that's the body's natural mood boosters, which obviously helps reduce anxiety and depression. It also provides a chance to reflect, reset, and gain mental clarity, especially when surrounded by nature. While any exercise indoors is obviously beneficial, being outdoors just adds that extra layer of mental well-being. The natural light, the fresh air, and the calming effect of green spaces enhance the positive impact, making walking in nature particularly effective. Walking with others, I think it really promotes that social connection. You really get to know other people, you get to know your community. A lot of people have developed great friendships out of it. You know, every season offers something unique, there's different benefits. I think spring, obviously, you have the fresh blooms, the summer provides long daylight hours, but autumn provides that stunning, you know, the colours, the burst of colour and that crisp, fresh air. I often get like a really cold nose. But each season provides a really different but equally therapeutic experience. Just trying to think of what advice I give somebody new to walking for mental health. Is probably start small. Choose a local, maybe scenic route. Take it at your own pace. Make it comfortable for yourself. Focus on your breathing, take in the sights and sounds. I don't know if you've ever heard of forest bathing, that kind of just immersing yourself in nature. Just allow yourself to be present and in the moment. I think even that short walk can have a big impact.
Thank you, Joe. Epsom is definitely a great place to enjoy a walk. Why not explore Epsom Common or Horton Country Park?
There are also some great walking groups in the area. Search online for Epsom walking groups, parks and open spaces.
Well, Joe has definitely inspired us to take a walk.
Let's visit Horton Country Park, a few minutes drive away. There are several car parks, but you can also get the bus from Epsom.
There are lots of accessible walking routes to follow and it's a well-managed site. The countryside wardens and volunteers do a fantastic job.
It's a perfect day out and there are picnic benches and designated areas for barbecues.
There's so much to see in this 400-acre park with a magnificent array of trees, open meadowland and tranquil spots to relax and enjoy the wonderful birdsong. If you listen closely, you might hear the green woodpecker, an emblem of Horton Country Park.
We're here in May when the magical bluebells are out and we're following the trail to Pond Wood, one of the ancient woodlands in Horton Country Park. The presence of bluebells in large quantities is a telltale sign of its age, likely dating back to 1600 or even earlier. These beautiful flowers provide essential nectar for bees, hoverflies and butterflies.
But we must protect this irreplaceable habitat. Here's how you can help. Stick to the main paths to preserve the delicate woodland flowers. Leave the bluebells for all to enjoy. Picking or destroying them is illegal. Plant native bluebells in your garden, avoiding the Spanish variety that threatens them. And take your litter home. It's harmful to wildlife and can spark wildfires.
Whether you're visiting during bluebell season or throughout the year, there is plenty to enjoy as the seasons change. Visit the Countryside page on Epsom and Ewell Council website for more information and volunteering opportunities.
I'll be dreaming of those lovely bluebells tonight.
I feel like we've had our own forest bathing session. I'm so relaxed.
And meeting all those fascinating people has been wonderful. We hope you've enjoyed exploring Epsom with us. Until next time!
This virtual day trip was created by Whistlestop Arts.
It was commissioned and funded by Epsom and Ewell Borough Council. Thank you to everyone who has supported this project.
For more free resources and information about the work we are involved in, please visit whistlestoparts.org.